On October 7th, 2023, Hamas launched an attack against Israel, instigating an Israeli onslaught against the Gaza Strip that has continued to this day, over a year later. On that first day, 1,139 people were killed, Israelis and foreigners alike. Over 44,000 Gazans have died in the following 14 months, and that number is likely closer to 50,000 based on some reports. These numbers continue to skyrocket, most of the victims women and children. Reporters on the ground have shared photos and videos of the horrors Gazan civilians have faced: starvation, disease, lack of shelter during the coldest and wettest months of the year, and all the while, endless bombing, endless death. In 14 months, what began as the world's largest open-air prison has now turned into the world's largest open-air concentration camp. The US has always been involved in Israeli affairs, supporting them in opposition to Palestine. We have a long, complicated history of supplying the Israeli Defense Force with weaponry that has been used against innocent civilians. Since October 7th, however, the already questionable morality of funding the IDF was catapulted into a moral crisis now that we are funding a genocide, which is not only an international crime, but is illegal within our own country under the Leahy Law. Our untethered support of Israel has deeply affected how the situation has unfolded in Gaza. Without our aid, genocide could have been avoided. America's response to the crisis has also largely impacted the outcome of our own presidential election. Had we refused to accept Israel's war crimes, we may have prevented 44,000 people from being murdered, and Americans may have voted for a different president 4 weeks ago. At this point, we will never know. But we do know that as the United States of America, the decisions we make have the power to sway history. It is worth unpacking our response to Gaza and Israel and exploring how it is differed depending on who you look at in America. America's response to the Gaza genocide is not unified across the map, but can be studied through a handful of lenses. Today, I will explore 3 of these lenses: the American government, the media, and the public. America is infamous for engaging in foreign conflicts, whether it be invading Iraq or maintaining a military presence in Afghanistan. We like to think of ourselves as the protectors of democracy, and have pledged our support to struggling democracies like Ukraine in its defense against authoritarian regimes like Russia. People can debate the morality of our involvement all day long, but it's true that we like to throw our weight around and make our presence felt in smaller developing countries. Since the creation of Israel in 1948, America has supported its growth, even at the expense of the Palestinians. We are known for our unconditional political and military support and our inability to criticize the Israeli government. No matter what the IDF does to Palestinians, we are unable to hold them accountable to any humanitarian crimes they commit, even against American citizens. While the UN and other countries have tried to defend Palestinians from the grave injustices they endure, America's military and political might overshadow any attempts at justice and allow Israel to flourish as a terrorist state. The question was, just how far were we willing to go? How much were we willing to put our character on the line and sacrifice our morality? It seems our support has no end. Since the beginning of the Gaza genocide, we have funded their bloody invasion with everything from rations to fighter jets.
But look here, it's made in USA.
By August, over 50,000 tons of American materials had crossed their border, and the funds keep pouring in. President Biden has discussed the need for a ceasefire several times, but only on the condition of Hamas releasing its hostages. When the UN appealed for an unconditional ceasefire this past November, the US vetoed it, allowing the violence to continue. It's clear that on a governmental level, the US is unwilling to take a strong stance against Israel, and that our calls for a ceasefire are empty and without consequence. Since October 7th, 2023, we've seen an uprising of dedicated journalists reporting from the ground in Gaza. often in the extreme conditions the IDF is cultivating. Bisan Auda is one of these young reporters and keeps her global audience updated via her Instagram account.
Hey everyone, this is Bisan from Gaza.
Only 25 years old, Bisan has been documenting the genocide from the beginning, walking us through her life in tents as she shares the situation with us.
قديش غريب موضوع الناس بتعيش في كل هاي الصدمات المتتالية، في كل هاي الأزمة والحرب والإبادة، وبرغم هيك ماسكين صيامهم، سواء في الشمال وإنه في مجاعة أو في الجنوب وإنه في نزول وأعداد لا نهائية من الخيام.
In her videos, Bisan is brutally honest about the perilous conditions they are living in, and begins each one with "I am still alive," as a reminder that she may not be the next time we expect to hear from her. Bisan is a Palestinian civilian who has dedicated her career to reporting on the genocide and sharing the truth with the world. However, even as Palestinian civilians are stepping forward to take on this burden of chronicling the horrors they've witnessed, America's own media outlets are failing to respond. Despite the gravity and the horror of what has happened, our news has taken either a neutral position towards Gaza and Israel or sided with Israel. We have seen evidence of this bias in the language used towards both Israel and Palestine. For example, in a study done on major news sources like the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Los Angeles Times, words like slaughter, massacre, and horrifying were used disproportionately in relation to Israel compared to Gaza. Language is a means of manipulation, and when news outlets choose to use highly charged language subjectively, they can skew the truth of what they are reporting on. Finally, let's look at what we, average Americans, believe. Throughout our country, the public has been the most divided in their response to the Gaza genocide. Since the initial attack, we've seen a wide range of reactions, reaching all the way from those who deny there is an ongoing genocide, to Arab Americans in Michigan who refuse to support Harris due to the current administration's contribution to the genocide. This vast array of responses stretches across the political spectrum, as people can't agree on the truth of what has happened, let alone the best response for America to take. For example, take the Democratic Party, which is known for being progressive. While some Democrats believe that Israel has gone too far in its actions against Gaza, not everyone does, and there is a split in the party. This graph gives a good visual of how people are divided in their opinions of Gaza and Israel. The Republican Party is more unified in their belief that Israel is justified in defending itself, as shown in this graph. There is also a divide among generations, with people between 18 and 29 more favorable towards Palestine, as compared to older generations. Students across the country have organized encampments and protests at their colleges, including this one in Washington, D.C. Frustrated and angry with the U.S. government's complicity, these students have faced scores of police who conducted over 3,000 arrests in the spring, at the height of the protests. While there are still many college students who support Israel, the general opinion of the youth is more evenly split than that of older generations. It's clear that Americans are deeply divided over Gaza, though it's also true that a majority of them do not understand the matter well enough to have an opinion. Their education is essential, however, as our country is enabling the mass murder of thousands of people, and if it continues, the extent of that destruction will be unimaginable. Israel's genocide of the Gazan people is directly tied to American funding and support. Our response could have been different. We could have held Israel accountable, refused to fund them further, demanded an end to the bombing. However, our complicity has led to the murder of close to 50,000 innocent people. As a former Israeli Major General confessed in 2023, all of our missiles, the ammunition, the precision-guided bombs, all the airplanes and bombs, is all from the U.S. Everyone understands that we can't fight this war without the United States, period. It's us. Without us, there would be no genocide.